So I've opened up Squared5 so I can import some of the clips that are at 24 frames per second and 30 frames per second, so I can re-render them individually. So what I'm going to do is open up the first clip and see if we can find those. I know the last one is 24 frames per second, so we'll go with that one. And we'll just check. 24 frames per second, yep. So we're going to render that one out at 25 frames per second. So we're going to go File, QuickTime, and we're going to go H.264. Here's where we set the frame rate, so we're going to go 25 frames. We're not going to scale. We're going to go frame blending and better downscaling if that's what's happening. And we're going to render that one out. And it's going to go back into this one, so we're going to go B. And we'll just let that do its thing. What we'll do is we'll just go and check that. Double click. It's opened up in QuickTime, so we're just going to play it back. And to make things even more confusing, we are now shooting at 23.93, I think it is, or roughly. And if we just go to the inspector, we can now see that's 25 frames per second. And my voice doesn't sound any different to what I'm sounding at the moment. The only thing I'm not overly happy with is the image quality is a little poorer than the previous one. So I'm going to go back into here again. And if we go to show stream info, we'll see that it should be at 48 megabits per second. So we're going to export the same clip again by going File, Export QuickTime. I'm using the H.264 and we're going to bump this up to 100%. We'll go Make Movie again, and this time we'll go C. We've actually got a higher data rate than was there originally. And we'll just go and locate that one. Again, 25 frames per second. Data size is actually quite big, but that's okay. Let's play back. And to make things even more confusing, we are now shooting at 23.93, I think it is, or roughly 24 frames per second, and again at 1920 by 1080. Okay, that's working okay. And the sound is the same rate as this one was. And to make things even more confusing, we are now shooting at 23.9. So although one's at 25 frames per second and this one is now 24 frames per second, you're not hearing any difference in the quality of the sound. The pitch hasn't actually changed, which is what you want. The preference is probably going to be the MPEG-4, and where we want the full rate, 25 frames per second, 100%. And the reason why I'm looking at the H.264 at MPEG-4 is that this should be more compatible with using on a PC, because I'm on a Mac as well. So again, it's a case of experimenting and seeing what works. So we'll export that one and go, and we'll do this one as D. And that's that one completed. Again, we'll play that one. And this one's actually opened up now inside the Squared5. And to make things even more confusing, we are now shooting at 23.93, I think it is, or roughly 20. Yeah, so my voice, again, the pitch is the same as you're hearing at the moment, so that's good. So we're now going to open up another file, and this time we're going to open up the 4K video and go OK. Still going to use the MPEG-4. We're going to use the 1920 by 1080. In fact, I'm going to go other. It's not going to give me that. And that looks as though it's I as opposed to P, but we're going to go and deinterlace it anyway. And so we're not going to use the same. We're going to reduce the size of this one down from 4K to 1920 by 1080. And we're going to choose the deinterlace this time because the rest were progressive scan. But it's not giving me that option here. So we'll go again. And this one will go D as well. And go save. And this may take a little bit longer. Now before I play that last clip, I'm going to do another experiment. I just want to go for the QuickTime again and see if there's a different codec that I could use. Well, the XD Cam ones are ones that I would have used in the past, but we use the 25 frames per second one, so we'll go with that one there because that's the same as what we shot. So we'll try the XD Cam. That's the P, 25 frames per second. We'll knock that one off, and then we'll just try this one and see what we get. And we'll call this E. Again, I'm choosing different ones just to see which one will work in Lightworks. Now, again, I'm using a Mac, and you may find that if you're using a PC that you need to use a slightly different codec. But it is a case of experimenting until you find something that replicates something similar to what you are using. So at 25 frames per second, whatever camera you're using, try and see if you could emulate that one so that any 30 frames per second clips that you are converting will then match up with your camera original material shot at 25 frames per second. And again, I'm a bit concerned because the data rate here is actually quite small. Yeah, there's a big difference there. So this is a quick video test, and this particular video clip is running at 25 frames per second. Not too bad, but I think that it's a low data rate, so I wouldn't necessarily go with that one. So let's have another look. And we will try this codec here. And just call this F. And we can see straight away that the data rate is a lot higher than the previous one. And again, we'll just check that one. And the QuickTime's having to convert it because it seemed to be an unusual codec for it. So we'll now play this one, see what it looks like. So this is a quick video test, and this particular video clip is running at 25 frames per second. There we go, so that's working good. So the reason for doing all these conversions is because If you have a 30 frames per second video clip and you play it in the mixed frame rates, it will play slower if you render it out at 25 frames per second, and so the pitch will go down. Likewise, if you render 25 frames per second out at 30 frames per second, you will get a slightly higher pitch. So by re-rendering using Squared5, you'll prevent that problem from happening. But we'll test that out shortly.